It's only Wednesday, but it has been a very busy week. So here's a taste of what you could hear around the Thanksgiving dinner table tomorrow.
Israel has agreed to a 4-day ceasefire.
The families of these hostages still do not know whether it is their loved ones who are coming out.
You know, it's like a Russian roulette. We are waiting to see who will come back home. It's crazy.
This week, it was new House Speaker Mike Johnson's turn to kiss the ring.
I think he's sort of making a compact with the devil.
If Donald Trump is elected president again in 2024, I do fear that it will be the last election where we're voting for democracy.
It has been a crazy few days for Silicon Valley.
Not even a week since OpenAI's board ousted Sam Altman. He is now returning as CEO, and many of them are ousted.
There really is this arms race. Everyone's chasing the same goal. I think there will be huge dividends to the company or the platform that gets there first.
Let's get this Thanksgiving conversation preheated with some folks that we trust. Brendan Buck is here, former chief communications advisor for both Speaker Paul Ryan and John Boehner, former Republican Congressman Charlie Dent of Pennsylvania, and Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, dean of the Clinton School of Public Service at the University of Arkansas and an MSNBC political analyst. Victoria, welcome to you all. I turn to you first. You know, we keep hearing democracy is at risk. Donald Trump is facing 91 different charges. How could he be doing so well, even in the Republican primaries? And we heard from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who said he thinks voters just have Trump brain fog, and that's going to clear up closer to election. What do you think about that?
That's a yes and answer to that, Stephanie. I mean, yes, we need to remind voters of what a Trump 2024 reality would look like, what the future of democracy might or might not be in the United States. But at the same time, you know, President Biden needs to go on the offense. He needs to sell what he has done. He needs to go on the offense, in particular on the issue of the border, because we've already seen Donald Trump starting to rev up that engine. And we know that it has played very well with his base, with Republicans. So President Biden has to have a very clear offensive strategy. I would say, hey, just keep pointing to the fact that Donald Trump says he wants to deport everyone. But then in terms of things that he can't control, there's the issue of foreign policy. And here, you know, President Biden, he needs to control the controllables, his domestic agenda, and just keep working at trying to negotiate peace so that Israel and Hamas can come to a more peaceful conclusion.
Brendan, people keep saying Biden needs to remind voters of who Trump is. But everybody knows who Trump is. He hasn't left the scene. He hasn't stopped talking.
Yeah, I mean, usually a year out, you have bad polling. That's what you would say. Our opponent isn't defined yet. We're going to define him. But people know who Donald Trump is, and a lot of them are still choosing him over Joe Biden. That should be very concerning for them. However, they've, I think, taken a lot of things off the table that they need to reconsider. Obviously, the legal troubles that Donald Trump has had. The White House has basically said hands off, and I understand why they don't want to look like they're politicizing his legal issues. But at some point, you need to take your gloves off against this guy and realize the threat that he is. I do think there is something to the fact that he has been away a little bit, and we haven't been reminded of him so much. Donald Trump is probably the biggest turnout driver that Democrats can hope for. But they need to realize that they're not going to be able to coast through this. Joe Biden's not going to win re-election by talking about his infrastructure program. I'm sorry, talking about your wins. You don't get rewarded like that in politics anymore.
But isn't that insane? Infrastructure, roads, bridges, better, faster Wi-Fi would actually make people's lives better and stronger. Isn't that what we want from our elected officials? Isn't that where we want our tax dollars to go?
I don't disagree with you, but what animates people? What animates people more? Infrastructure or Donald Trump and the threat to democracy? And elections are about animating people and drawing them out to vote. I think Donald Trump and the appeal of him, the threat that he poses for a lot of people is probably much more animating than roads and bridges in your neighborhood.
Charlie, beyond Donald Trump's ride or die base, what is it that he's offering people? Like, I want to know what we're going to hear at the Thanksgiving table tomorrow, because I don't hear him talk or offer any cogent policies. And for anyone who even says, well, I had more money in my pocket during the Trump years, we weren't coming out of a pandemic, and we weren't facing one, now two wars.
Well, with Donald Trump, you're really not going to get any conversation about public policy. That's not what he's about. He's about anger and grievance. And that's, frankly, Trump's appeal to a segment of his base. That's why they're loyal to him. He's fighting this culture war, which I happen to find, reprehensible, but it has real resonance with much of our country. So Donald Trump, again, he's in a policy-free zone. I've been saying for a long time, the Republican Party's all split up. There's the governing pragmatic institutional wing of the party, which is much smaller than this ascendant illiberal populist wing, which is really not about policy at all, but grievance. And that's what Trump is doing. And so I think it's going to be another campaign going forward where there's not going to be a whole lot of discussion about policy. And you pointed out earlier, if I were the Democrats, I'd keep reminding them about Donald Trump, the voters anyway, because the voters, a lot of them see Trump as an animating force. As Brendan Buck has just said, he's a turnout machine. They're not going to vote out because they're not going to turn out because they love Joe Biden so much. They really don't like him that much. They're unenthused by him, but they really dislike and despise.
Hold on, Charlie. They're not going to turn out for Joe Biden. This last week, what was it, a week ago? Look what people did in Ohio. Look what people did in Georgia. The year before, that big red wave and all those candidates Donald Trump endorsed, they didn't win. So this narrative that Joe Biden doesn't excite people, I don't know. He became the president, and then he had 2 really strong midterms. So on what grounds do you say that?
Well, on the grounds in Ohio, the motivating issue was abortion. It wasn't Joe Biden. I mean, that's what drove them out. And in the 2020 election, people were voting against Trump. I mean, this was a vote against Trump more than it was a vote for Joe Biden. That was pretty clear. And we saw the same thing in 2016, 2 candidates who are not well liked. And Trump at that time won the double haters. Biden won the double haters in 2020, over people who dislike both Biden and Trump. Who knows what it's going to look like in 2024? So right now, like I said, Biden he's just not motivating his base. They're not enthusiastic about him. They are angry about Trump. And so if I were the Democrats, I'd keep pounding away on Trump as much as possible and abortion, because that's what's motivating their base.
Victoria, in theory, voters like their lawmakers to do something. They like their tax dollars to give them something. Mike Johnson spent his Monday flying down to Mar-a-Lago to see Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't want to see Congress get anything done. How does Mike Johnson, as the Speaker of the House, winning over Trump, staying in Trump's good graces, help the American people, help your family and mine? They're going to be talking about what their lawmakers are doing for them tomorrow.
It doesn't help the American people, but it helps the Speaker himself. And this might be a good short-term strategy, but it's not a good long-term or even medium-term strategy, Stephanie, because we're looking at the map in terms of 2024 for the House, and it is leaning more and more blue. We see a number of races, I would say, I think it was about 18 at last count, where there was a Republican in a seat where Joe Biden won that area. So we know going into this election that Democrats already have an advantage. We also know that in terms of some of the districting cases that have come out, Democrats are again getting an advantage. And the American public is frustrated. They are frustrated at the shenanigans we have seen, and they want folks to do something. So this is not going to bode well for the 2024. Maybe for the short term it works, but not the long.
They're frustrated about things like gun safety that pull overwhelmingly in one direction, yet we do so little.